Hello friends, welcome to a new episode of Drishti IAS editorial analysis. In this editorial analysis, we do three things. First of all, we link the editorial to the UPSC syllabus. Secondly, we try to understand the key points of the editorial. And thirdly, if any key concepts have come in the editorial and are important from exam point of view, we also discuss that. So let us begin today's editorial analysis.
Dear viewer, this video is available in Hindi as well. If you wish to watch it, please visit our Hindi YouTube channel, Drishti IAS. For your convenience, the link for this video in Hindi has been provided in the description below.
We have taken today's editorial from the Indian Express and it has come on 7th of July. The title of the editorial is Revise the Law. It says, the review of the penal code, its statutes, is long overdue. Exercise must be guided by imperative of ensuring accountability. So now let us look at its linkage with the syllabus. So it links directly with GS paper 2, where we have governance as an important topic. Under this we have structure, organization and functioning of the executive and the judiciary. And it also links with important aspects of governance. Because here basically the issue is about revisiting the laws which are of colonial era, especially the Indian Penal Code of 1860, which is not in sync with the ideas of a modern independent nation. So after establishing the linkage with the syllabus, now let us look at the key points of the editorial. So the editorial starts by saying that the Ministry of Home Affairs has set up a 5-member expert committee to overhaul the criminal laws in the country, which is a welcome step and it was long overdue. This 5-member expert committee is headed by Dr. Ranbir Singh, who is Vice Chancellor of National Law University, Delhi. This is an important fact and we should know this. Further, the editorial says that the Indian Penal Code and its corollary laws like the Indian Evidence Act and the Code of Criminal Procedure were all first enacted in the late 19th century and have not undergone comprehensive revision. And this is where the problem basically lies. When IPC was first framed, it was a modern law for that time. But over the years, things have changed. The customs, the norms, the traditions, they all have evolved. And now India is an independent country as well. So these laws also need to reflect that reality. Though there have been additions and deletions in the statute books, but a comprehensive revision of these laws still remain a pending task. Further, the editorial says that Indian Penal Code, also known as IPC, is the piece of legislation with which an ordinary Indian citizen has to interact the most and which governs his relationship with the state, but which is essentially rooted in colonial ideas, and the basic premise is a master-servant relationship, and this needs to change. And the editorial says that some changes have been made through amendments and judicial pronouncements, but the laws still do not reflect the aspirations of a constitution that gives primacy to liberty and equality. And as evidence, the editorial cites that it has taken 158 years for the courts in India to decriminalize homosexuality and adultery, which were offences in the Indian Penal Code based on the Victorian morality, and many others still remain in the statute books. And it also gives an example that, for instance, enticing of a married woman who is in the care of a man is an offence that carries a jail term of up to 2 years. And these kind of laws and offences, they promote patriarchal attitudes within a constitutional framework which essentially promises equality but goes against it. The other famous law which is known for its abuse is the sedition law, which is punishable with imprisonment for life. And this is also a colonial law which is misused by the state against its citizens, and this also needs revisiting. Also, the editorial adds that as we are progressing, new crimes need to be defined and addressed. especially concerning technology and sexual offences. But at the same time, it is important to not give in to populist demands and run the risk of excessive policing and over-criminalizing. Because the editorial adds that the government usually takes the easier option when dealing with such issues, like taking refuge in stricter laws and harsher punishments. And here it gives the example of the renewed debate on death penalty, which continues both within and outside the judicial circles. Though the judiciary has evolved the rarest of rare doctrine to deal with death penalty cases, but still the legislature has to come out with a law on the death penalty issue that settles the matter once and for all, like many countries have abolished the death penalty. But in India, the legislature is passing the buck to the judiciary. Also, the editorial says that on procedural aspects of criminal law, there is a need to harmonize the statute books with court rulings. And here an important example is of the Information Technology Act, which has a section 66A. Even though it has been removed or struck down by the Supreme Court, but still it is being used by the police forces to arrest individuals under this very section. So this kind of harmonization is needed where laws which are no longer applicable due to judicial pronouncements, they are removed from the statute books, and the information has to percolate down to the cutting edge level of police forces, which deals with the citizens. An editorial also says that the criminal law in the country needs to be updated to meet the demands of the democratic temper of the 21st century. And that is why this committee has been now set up by the Ministry of Home Affairs. And the editorial suggests that while the committee debates the idea of criminal justice and what the gamut of laws really achieves, it also needs to place various stakeholders at the heart of this change that is needed in the statute books. As it says that the victim is often on the margins of the justice process, while the accused is burdened with the institutional delays. We need a criminal justice system that is efficient as well as effective. And here we should also know about this Malimat committee, which was set up in 2003 for suggesting changes to IPC, which is Indian Penal Code, and Criminal Procedure Code, which is also known as CRPC. But even this committee's recommendations have not been fully followed. Finally, the editorial says that accountability must guide the balance between the rights of the citizens and what the state can do. So this was all in the key points of the editorial. Now let us look at some of the key concepts. So now let us look at Indian Penal Code. Now it is the official criminal code of India, and it is a comprehensive code which covers all substantive aspects of criminal law. But it was drafted in 1860 on the recommendation of the First Law Commission of India, established in 1834 under the Charter Act of 1833 and under the chairmanship of Lord Thomas Babington Macaulay, and it came into force in British India in 1862. So this is important from prelims point of view. We should be aware of these facts. Second is the Indian Evidence Act. Now this act originally passed in India by the Imperial Legislative Council in 1872, and it contains a set of rules and allied issues governing admissibility of evidence in the Indian courts of law. And before coming of this, the rules of evidence were based on traditional legal systems of different social groups and communities of India, and were different for different people depending on caste, community, faith and social position. And this Indian Evidence Act introduced a standard set of laws applicable to all Indians. Now let us look at Code of Criminal Procedure. It is commonly called Criminal Procedure Code (CRPC), and it is the main legislation on procedure for administration of substantive criminal law in India. It was enacted in 1973 and came into force from 1st April 1974. It provides the machinery for the investigation of crime apprehension of suspected criminals, collection of evidence, determination of guilt or innocence of the accused person, and the determination of punishment of the guilty. It also deals with public nuisance, prevention of offences, and maintenance of wife, child, and parents. Now let us look at decriminalization of homosexuality, or section 377 as it was popularly known. So in the Navtesh Singh Johar versus Union of India 2018 case, the Supreme Court has decriminalized homosexuality by striking off parts of section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, which were held violative of the fundamental rights of LGBTQ community. And LGBTQ here stands for lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgender and queer community. Sometimes it is also known as LGBTQ+. And the key observations of this case by Supreme Court were, first of all, Supreme Court made it clear that Article 14 of the Constitution guarantees equality before law, and this applies to all classes of citizens, thereby restoring inclusiveness of LGBTQ community. And Supreme Court also upheld the preeminence of constitutional morality in India, observing that equality before law cannot be denied by giving precedence to public or religious morality. Supreme Court also noted that modern psychiatric studies and legislations recognize that gay persons and transgenders do not suffer from a mental disorder and therefore cannot be penalized for their orientation. Supreme Court also observed that homosexuality is not unique to humans, which dispels the prejudice that it is against the order of nature. So this case is very important, and this section we should be knowing. Now let us look at adultery. Now the act of adultery is a voluntary sexual intercourse between a married person and someone other than that person's current spouse or partner. Now the Supreme Court has struck down as unconstitutional the 158-year-old section 497 of the Indian Penal Code, which criminalized adultery. And Supreme Court said that the 158-year-old law was unconstitutional and is violative of Article 21 and Article 14. And in this case, the Supreme Court observed that two individuals may part if one cheats, but to attach criminality to infidelity is going too far. And how married couples deal with adultery is absolutely a matter of privacy between them. Also, it held that legal sovereignty of one sex over the other sex is wrong, because it only promotes the concept of patriarchy. But if any aggrieved spouse ends her life because of her partner's adulterous relation, it could be treated as an abetment to suicide if evidence is produced. Now let us see the sedition law. Now section 124A of the Indian Penal Code is also popularly known as the sedition law, and it was introduced in the year 1870 by the Britishers. And Gandhiji had famously called section 124A as the prince among the political sections of the Indian Penal Code, designed to suppress the liberty of citizens. And it is unfortunate that sedition law continues in the statute books in an independent India. And under section 124A of the IPC, the offence of sedition is committed when any person by words or otherwise brings or attempts to bring into hatred or contempt, or excites or attempts to excite disaffection towards the government established by law. And this was originally drafted by Thomas Macaulay. Now let us see the Law Commission observations on sedition laws. So in an earlier report in 1968, the Law Commission had rejected the idea of repealing the section. But later on it observed that sedition is many a times used to stem any sort of political dissent in the country. In fact, it has opined the burning of the constitution or expression of disappointment with the members of parliament through a visually disparaging cartoon also cannot amount to sedition. And the Law Commission has stated that section 124A should be invoked only in cases where the intention behind any act is to disrupt public order or to overthrow the government with violence and illegal means. But as we have seen that sedition laws are used by the, or it is better to say abused by the ruling party to put down any political dissent. So this was all in the editorial analysis. Now let us look at the kind of questions that can be asked. So in prelims, the question can be asked on the expert committee which has been set up by the Ministry of Home Affairs to review the criminal laws in the country. And who is heading it? So Dr. Ranbir Singh, who is Vice Chancellor of National Law University of Delhi, he is heading it, and it's the 5-member expert committee. Questions can also be asked on Indian Penal Code. When was it introduced in India? Also, we should be aware about the sections of IPC which have been in news and important court cases relating to sedition, adultery and decriminalization of homosexuality. Section 377. In mains, the question can be on the reforms needed in Indian Penal Code or in the colonial era laws in general. Also, a question can be asked why India is still continuing with colonial era laws. Especially a question can be here on sedition, that why this is continuing in the statute books, though it is a colonial era law and it has no place in an independent democratic country. So we should be prepared on these kind of questions. So this was all in today's editorial analysis. We'll see you next time with another editorial. Thank you.